Good Monday morning, everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. It is Monday, August 9th, 2021. Wherever you are this morning, you're viewing with us, we welcome you to the broadcast, and we're wishing you a very pleasant day ahead. Trust everyone had a really good weekend. The sun is up bright and early this morning. It's a beautiful Monday on Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. All the broadcast entities joining us, we thank you very, very much as you show up Monday by Monday and stream us live. MTV on air and online, Mikey Live, Perspectives, our Perspectives page, Partygrenada, TNR Communications, and to those of you out there looking in Carriacou, looking on at Sister Isle Radio, who stream us on Facebook. Good morning again, everyone, and I say good morning to Senator Christopher Diali and Mr. Byron Campbell. Good morning, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Brenda.
How are we this morning?
We are good. You look as though you're in a celebratory mood. Are you in the, the other mood?
Yeah, man. I mean, all week I've been going. Lyndon and Kirani have me going.
Yes. Good morning to our viewers and our listeners. I'm happy to be here, and I think we could start off with a positive thing with Kirani.
Yeah. Certainly, morning all. It's just great to be alive. And it's just, as Brenda says, sunny morning, beautiful day. Yeah. Wishing all a productive week, But I agree with you, Chris. I mean, go for it. It has to be positive this morning.
Yeah. I mean,
celebrating.
Lots of things to feel good about.
Absolutely.
Grenada is concerned.
Yeah. And I probably open back with Kirani. I think that, that young man has made us so proud, has done so well. I don't know how much more adjectives you could use to describe his performance. He showed the grit, even in winning that bronze medal and coming back, and you watch him come down the stretch. You could see the fight and the determination to make something happen, and so he did. And I think all Grenadians had to be so proud of the young man, not only for just winning medals, but just the whole, what he has gone through to reach where he is today, and what he continues to do, and it is just an amazing story. It's not only him. All our athletes who went to the Olympics, I thought, did well, made a good account of themselves. From the swimmers come up. Our swimmers did very well. They led their races. Obviously, their times wasn't there yet, obviously, but I mean, they made a good account of themselves.
Yeah.
And our javelin guy didn't do so well, but the others,
Anderson
in the decathlon. I mean, we're very proud of them. We're very, very proud of them. And I just want to say congrats to all of them and all of their support crew who have gotten them to this point and keep on doing the good work, and keep us making us proud.
Yeah. It was Mr. Campbell?
Yeah, no. Chris, I just want to endorse what you're saying here about what touched me most was not medaling, What touched me most was taking up the flag from the ground from the winner.
Oh, yes.
And draping it around him, I think that brought, I got emotional about this. And for me, this demonstrated, showcased the person who he is. While everybody was celebrating and thinking about himself, he medaled, and should be with his own flag. He was able to observe and look at the winner, the champion, so to speak. He's also a champion. And for me, that stood out. The other thing was that, and you mentioned the other athletes, and I think that's important, but Lyndon Victor, the decathlon, understand this event. And it carries 10 grueling events. You're talking about shot put, javelin, discus, 400, 1500, long jump, high jump, and it goes on. And to be seventh in the world, I mean, for me, this is enormous. This is huge. So I want to congratulate Victor, but I also, the other athletes, the swimmers, the others. I think Grenada, every night as you sat down every evening, and Grenada was there on the a small island, 110,000 people. That's a big deal. And I think we really have to recognize our athletes.
A big deal. It is really a huge deal. And I don't even think we realize how big it is. In the last week, all sports writers, all credible sources of sporting information, people who are covering the Olympics, no mind there were all these gold medal winners, but they were still focusing on these really great stories coming out of the Olympics. and Grenada was featured in most of them. And they kept talking about this island and 110,000 people and having all these Olympians and all of that. And that's the thing, we look for medals, but we don't even think about the point that the athletes at the Olympics that we send qualify to be Olympians, just to qualify to be an Olympian. So that little Ins girl, the swimmer, that's a big deal at her age. Delron is the same thing, and they have more in them to come. What I wish for them is that we really fast track and do our best to get the aquatic center up. Those kids are not lacking talent or skill. What they need is the infrastructure. I mean, swimming as an organization is probably one of the best run organizations in Grenada. Administratively, they're sound. So we really need to put in the, get it done. And to 2024, we're sending about 5 of them out there.
Chris?
Kirani, for me, every time I talk about Kirani, I get teary. I having a lot of mascara this morning because we're on TV, so I don't want to cry. So, but Kirani for me is a big deal. But this is not about me. I'll just say this is a big deal for Grenada. And we've been told time and time again, and he shared his story of what he's been through. And Kirani is very modest and very elegant and really doesn't like to let on that he doesn't like to focus on himself. So his coach, when I listened to his coach was the one that really gave me an understanding of what Kirani has been through over the course of the last 3 years. And that is something else. I mean, there are some people in the world that are just special, that when God made them, he just takes some kind of Midas from some place and he places on them, and that will carry them through their life forever. Don't care how we try to figure it out, what we try to do, he is just special. The thing with the Bahamian guy, yes, that was it for me as well. What Kirani said afterwards was this. He said, the race was finished. He looked at him on the ground. His flag was on the ground. He said he could hear his coach and other people saying, don't let the flag. So instinctively, Kirani picked up the flag and draped him with it. I mean, what a decent human. What a decent human. You're a champion. You just get beat. But you are going to ensure that the person who won the race gets their glory. That there be nothing to be said to make them less of a person. There you are, propping them up. I mean, what is bigger than that? A young man from Gun Battle, Guave, St. John, Grenada. I mean, that is a big deal. And Lyndon was for me. Lyndon had me screaming for 2 nights. I love Lyndon. Lyndon is Iron Man, our Iron Man. And Lyndon had personal best in the discus and the which one was the javelin? Yeah. And to just keep coming and coming and coming. The Prime Minister described it well. He said he was looking at the thing and he saw, I think he was 6 or whatever, and he said he went to bed. When he get up, he heard them calling out people, calling the numbers, and he's like, okay, maybe he didn't make it. Then when he looked at the screen, he see my number 3. And he was like, wow, So it's really, it's just fantastic. Feel so proud of these young people, their families, feel so good about Grenada. And their support teams. The Grenada Olympic Association, who kept giving them the monies, the government of Grenada. One of the things that we're not putting in the conversation is the investment that has been put into sport. These people did not get to the Olympics just so. And that's the part that we keep leaving out of the conversation, because I guess we don't want to credit who needs to be credited, but the investment that has been put in.
The infrastructure.
The investment that has been put into sports in this country. Yes, we still need a sports policy. Yes, all of that. But we need to really be proud of where we are, who we are, and how we are being profiled. We couldn't pay for that. So congratulations to everybody.
I want to throw something at Chris here, because sports administration, are we talking here about the Olympics structure, organization, institution, and that whole supports services? And we know recently there's a lot of issues related to that. So I think this is a dimension of it. If we're going to reach the pinnacle, if we're going to do better, also has to be rectified and corrected, Chris.
It certainly has. And I suppose the question you could ask is, what if the administration was running things better or more transparent?
Yeah.
Could we have seen more come to meet world standards that we have now in other disciplines?
Yes.
And,
But is athletes matriculating and getting to Olympic status? That's not their mandate. That starts with the coaching programs. That starts with the Ministry of Sports. That starts with the programs put on by these states. What they do is support with money.
Hold on, yes.
And but that's not the.
You have to give the various disciplines the support financially
Haven't
and
they?
otherwise.
No.
And
They
that
have,
is part of the challenge when monies are not directed as it ought to. This is what this investigation was about. That monies have not gone where it ought to because it went in other places.
I think let's just be a little fair. I think they have over the years. Maybe, yes, I agree that there is this situation now and so on. But if you talk to, I know there was a time swimming, I was at GBN at the time, swimming was going somewhere. And they paid for all the tickets.
How much years now are we trying to get a 50-meter pool?
Is that the Olympic committees?
Yeah, they were part of the sponsored monies came and so on, and nothing has happened. Now you hear the argument about the 50-meter pool is maintenance. Right? They chose a site. This is years.
No, they have the land over there.
That's what I'm saying. Why hasn't it been built? If monies was allocated, I think they took it
alone,
back.
Though?
No, well, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying that administration is not just about, it's about everybody.
Let's celebrate the athletes.
Yes, let's celebrate the athletes.
Oh, we can do a lot better. I'm going to make this point. We ought to be doing better on the sports administration from the Olympic organization and structure.
That's correct.
The reports are not good.
I want to throw in another one here. No, I mean, I know we're going to get to the jab thing just now, but I mean, I think one of the other, I was on a program yesterday, we were talking about the inflation crisis and what's happening in our country and generally within the region and around. And I think it's a really significant issue for us, all of us in business and the ordinary consumer. And what is happening there in relation to the inflation. And I mean, I was saying yesterday, a lot of this is imported inflation because we are not importing country, of course. And when you look at what is happening with the price of oil, and the price of oil have gone up significantly. Now we're being told it's going to end the year into December around $70 a barrel, or between $60 and $70 a barrel, moving from $40 a barrel. And you're seeing it on our electricity bills already. I think Grenlec had put out something saying the fuel charge, surcharge doubled from 20-something cents to 40-something cents now.
Last month,
I in business,
was a mistake.
I was saying that, a couple of months ago, I paid $10,000 for a 40-foot. I'm paying $20,000 now for a 40-foot just in freight. And with that freight increase, 100%, in some cases more than 100%, you have on top of that the issue of cannot get containers. So you have a logistics issue. So you have delays and stuff coming in. And then
Do we have scarcity issues as well?
That's right.
Wow.
And then you have the issue of, apart from the containers, the demand on goods and services because COVID had caused a lot of lockdown in various industries across the world, construction being one, steel being one. Now a lot of the factories are not back up and the demand is there and they have less factories producing. So the demand and supply is a situation where there's far more demand for the products and the goods that we need, so the prices are escalating. And you put all of that, it's almost like a perfect storm. Because on top of that, no, you have people whose jobs and sectors are not back up, so people still highly unemployed, still a high level of unemployment. There is very little purchasing
But not
power.
only that, Senator Ali, the thing about it is that what happens, so you just described the situation in your business there. So you can't continue to operate at the same levels as it relates to cost. You have to recoup your money. Your company has shareholders. Your company has shareholders. Your company is not a public sector. So I would have to pay more for paint and stuff.
And at the end of the day, we can't pass on all the costs. I mean, I seen that in freight and associated duties. Because I remember when something lands CIF, you pay duties on the CIF.
That's right.
So once the freight goes into the
CIF again, cost insurance freight. Okay.
And once it goes in there, your duties goes up by a corresponding percentage. And similarly, you're seeing I can't pass on all my raw materials have gone up by approximately 30% in the last 6 months. How do I transfer that to the consumer? When I do that, no gallon of paint will sell.
Right. So here's a paradox in that as well with with freight and all these things, you paying more and so on. It means then that the government duties will go up. So then the government revenues goes up as well.
Correct.
But then on the other side, we are paying more for everything. And then we are becoming disgruntled with the government because they should be taking care
And the
of
same-
what we pay.
you know,
so
the
it's
argument
a real
with
storm in a...
the argument with the bus
There is-
association. The bus association
Yeah.
have been hammering about since the fuel prices started. I think it moved from $11 to $16 a gallon, well, almost 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And you could understand that if you went to the pump and you were paying, let's say on a full up $130, and now you're paying $180. You know, there's a $50 increase. And everything for them have gone up as well. The busmen, their brakes, their oil, their
Naturally,
tires.
because that goes into the whole importation
That's
thing.
right.
Yeah.
And so across the
Yeah.
scale, and you can understand where they're coming from, the complaints. And the discussion has to be that everyone needs to sit around the table and discuss it. And I know the government takes, I think Minister Bowen talked about the fixed charge on fuel.
Yeah.
But the fixed charge on fuel works for them and for us in not the right, in you know, plus and minus. If it's fixed on per gallon, when the price goes up per gallon, as we see now, the government gets their fixed charge. per
Doesn't
gallon,
move.
Stays,
Doesn't
doesn't
move.
move.
Yeah.
But when the price goes down, the fixed charge stays fixed. They still get a, so we suffer when the price goes down. Because the fixed charge stays fixed.
Yeah.
Right? But if you were to attach it to percentage of the cost, then it will fluctuate with the price.
The
And Chris-
difference,
yeah.
the difference with the bus, the difference with the busmen and the other sectors like your business and so that, you know, where the cost has gone up for everybody and you're paying all these additional duties and so on. Of course, some more than others, but other businesses and other sectors have had the ability to pass on the cost in some form or fashion. The busmen have not had that
That's
opportunity.
correct. That's correct.
So that is the difference between them and the rest of these sectors.
And that's right.
And that is what we need to hone in on, because I think in anything you administer, whether it's government, whether, you know, even at your home, you really have to attempt to be as judicious as you can be. And so that is something to look at. I mean, it's a whole lot of moving parts, you know. And then the pandemic,
why I
and the
said-
pandemic has created all of this.
Yeah, this is
because
why I
we
said-
seem to be honing in on the fact that an individual did this or this one created that. The Prime Minister is just the head of our affairs. The fact is, COVID, we are all in this together, and this is creating all these issues. Of course, he is leading, so he has to help solve some of them. But we have to understand that nobody brought these things on us. It is because of the pandemic.
If I could comment on this. So I agree with you, Brenda, in that where you have control prices like bus fares or other control prices, it needs special address. To what extent would the stimulus package alleviate, help,
And again,
address?
Mr. Campbell, where does the money for stimulus come from?
No, it's a loan.
From these things,
It's
yes.
a loan. It's
and
a
some
loan.
of
It's
these
a loan.
things.
It's a loan. We
It's a
take. But I
perfect
agree.
storm, like I said.
Yes.
But I agree that
Wow.
again, it's all related, and Grenada is not alone in this.
no,
This
no,
is
absolutely.
global, very much.
You sure we're not alone?
No,
No, you think we're alone, man. We don't know what happening too.
and it brings us right to the other point of where are we with COVID? Where are we with the vaccine, COVID-19? And what's happening in the
Listen.
region? Because we tend to look at Grenada, but in terms of the region, what's happening in Jamaica? I understand Jamaica's all 7 hospitals are now at capacity and over capacity. In St. Lucia, we have major cases there coming on stream. I mean, of course, we have the anti-vax movement where you have demonstrations and socioeconomic developments in all countries. St. Vincent, with the injury of the Prime Minister, and demonstrations in Barbados.
He wasn't injured. They're bossy
The
head.
bussy head. It's a criminal activity.
And Antigua.
And Antigua. So, where are we in Grenada? What's happening? Is our numbers going up? Is it stabilized? To what extent are we taking this seriously? We see. Well, they cancelled Carnival. We know from yesterday that we have Jab being happening in different communities.
So Jab playing as we speak.
As we speak. So, what was happening?
I
Where
must
are
say
we?
though,
You know?
from the drive from the deep south this
Yeah.
morning to the
Yeah.
National Stadium,
Stadium.
there was not one jab in sight. Not one. But across the island, in other parts of the island, I must report that jab seems to be
But
everywhere.
my only comment on this is that I think I'm getting vaccine type.
Me too.
What do you mean, Chris?
By saying that encouraging people to be vaccinated and play the pros and the cons, listen to the arguments for and against.
Yeah.
You get tired because at the end of the day, people are going to make a decision or not make a decision to do it. And we will have to live by the consequences as a country and as a people.
Yeah.
So I am at a stage where I am not trying to push anymore. Is that I am here saying that you as an individual, I think you have had all the information, medically and otherwise. You make a decision and live by the consequences. What I know for sure is that companies will continue to roll out their protocols for people who are not vaccinated. And you will see it happening across the financial sector. You're going to see it happening across private enterprise, the hotel sector, and it's going to be happening more and more. And then the question is going to become, when is government going to mandate for the high-risk areas? And I think that is a question that must be answered, because I can't understand how our police service, our prison service, and immigration and customs are not who are on the front line. And I won't even go there because I think they should have been the first one.
Yeah.
But that aspect of our civil service and our public service, how we are not mandating for them, because they are at serious risk. Yeah. And as we open up and we get more open with our visitors coming in, I mean, come on, we have what? 11 cases or 12 cases, positive cases from zero, because we have started to open up, and we're not sure if the Delta variant is here, but as you project obviously forward, you can see this situation getting more and more intense in terms of positive cases and so on. So, I don't know what else is left to be said, except to say, people just need to educate themselves and see where that goes.
John Lennon just popped into my head.
So.
Let it be. Let it be.
Yeah.
Let it be. Let it be. There will be an answer.
She sings well. That's pretty good. But no, this I was speaking recently to a scientist friend of mine, and previously he was projecting, look, October, November, we could be in a lockdown situation, a bad situation. But he now believes that this could happen much earlier, based on the borders opening up, our whole approach to the vaccine, what he's seeing right now. So this is not looking very good at all for Grenada.
Yeah, and I mean, Byron, I think we have said this on this program many times, we're on a precipice. And the only time people probably be shocked into understanding is if Grenada gets a run on its system of 50, 60, 100 cases and people start to die. That is an unfortunate thing to say, but apparently that is how the reality will hit us. It's only when you lose your loved ones, and because you hear people talking about, the ministry put out a notice about the cases, and they say, they're only doing that now because we're in this this carnival festive, and we saying that is not factual information. I mean, it's just, I don't know what else to say about that, and we just have to take it. I mean,
the fatigue is building in, Chris.
Yeah,
I can see that.
We're tired, but COVID not tired.
Exactly.
COVID is matriculating. It's now Alpha, Beta, Delta, Gamma, and we go in. Yeah? Anyway, we got to run. We'll run for a short break and come back. That is our special guest panel this morning is the Honorable Oliver Joseph. We'll be talking to him about a lot of the things Senator Diali discussed and just where we are, the state of play economically in Grenada. We take a break. We'll be right back on Perspectives. Stay with us.
Get vaxxed. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
connects us all.
Are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go. There are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Welcome back to Perspectives, everyone. If you're just joining us this morning, we welcome you to the broadcast wherever you are in Grenada. And this morning, our special guest panelist is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade, CARICOM Affairs. He's also the parliamentary representative for St. David. We say good morning and welcome to the Honorable Oliver Joseph.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you here as well. Good morning to you. The ride to us was smooth this morning.
Yes, it was.
All right.
Surprisingly, there was no jab, which is a good thing, which is a good surprise.
Well, you're the representative for St. David. St. David traditionally do jab
Yes,
on Tuesday, not so?
Well, Tuesday morning, but on Monday you will find it throughout the villages, and then Tuesday morning they converge in Latin Junction for the big parade. Yeah.
All right. Do you expect to see them tomorrow morning?
Of course they will be there tomorrow morning. They have notified me that they will be there.
Oh, they have?
Yes.
I love it.
So you're in touch with the jab.
I'm in touch with the people.
Oh yeah. All right. Well said. So, Minister, let's just leave the jab there for a while, and let's get to some pressing issues here that is really affecting everyone. So, I'm coming now with your CARICOM Affairs designation, and of course, other things that you can tackle. All the price shocks that are happening with fuel, food, freight, Senator Daly just alluded to. Of course, interest rates, I'm sure, will be negatively impacted as well. So, and that is really impacting the costs for the consumers, people, at the supermarket, at the pump, on the port, wherever you go. Because this seems to be a global thing as well. So what can CARICOM, what can the region do through CARICOM to deal with this global problem?
That's not a new problem. In fact, before, when we had high prices, CARICOM took a decision to look at the duties and charges in member states to see how we could bring some form of relief. In the case of Grenada, let me put it into perspective. So we are net importing country. So our trade deficit was at $105 million in terms of food import, and the overall deficit is $1.05 billion. So we import $1.05 billion more than we export. Because we export very little, and therefore we depend on imports. Oil prices around the world, every time oil prices go up, it affects the cost of production, because electricity is a main input cost in production. So if your input costs keep rising, the output will obviously increase. So you have that phenomenon where oil prices increasing, and therefore it has this ripple effect. And it's passed on directly to the consumer because somebody has to meet it. The manufacturer is in business to make money, and he has to pass on its costs. And then you have the recent event where freight costs has doubled, in some cases coming from Asia. So without government increasing any tax whatsoever, you have an increase in the landed cost of goods.
Right.
And in Grenada's case, and in the OECS, we calculate, our calculation of duties is based on the CIF price. That is the cost you pay for it, the insurance you pay, and the freight. In some countries, especially the developed world, they charge you duties on the FOB. They don't care how much the insurance was or the freight, just on the cost. FOB, free on board. You pay your freight. And that's where they base the calculation on. In that formula, when you apply duty, you're applying it on a lower cost. But Grenada and most of the OECS countries depend heavily on taxes at the port to meet government expenditure. In the case of Grenada, 51% of government current revenue comes from border taxes.
51%?
51%, and the next 49% come from inland taxes, your property tax and so on, but at the port. So that's a high dependence.
Yeah.
And it was higher before, you know. Much higher. I remember a Minister of Trade, it was a few years ago, it was 60-something%.
Right.
Now it's 51%. So when you have a situation, an economy that depends so heavily on taxes at the border to meet its recurrent expenditure, then when you hear the call to reduce the taxes, it means giving up revenue.
Right.
So when you give up the revenue then, and at the same time you hear the call to fix the roads and do everything else, but where is the revenue going to come from? You see, every time you make a suggestion what government should do, think about where is the revenue coming from.
Right. Having said that, though, because I mean, it's a reality that all these prices are going up, and of course, the people whom you govern, they're grumbling, they're dissatisfied, they're feeling the pinch, so to speak. Is the government of Grenada looking at any methods or anything where they can sort of, make it easier for folks at this time?
Well, I said to make it easier is only one thing the government could do, because the government has no control over the freight. They have no control over oil price.
That's why I asked the CARICOM question.
Yeah.
What can we do as a
right? So what
region?
CARICOM did, they came up with a list of goods and said, and recommended to countries that they zero rate these goods. So we have VAT at 15%. So on a list of basic food items, they agree to zero rate it. And that is what this cabinet is looking at.
Okay.
A basket of goods that could be zero rated.
Right.
It means giving up revenue. So you're moving from 15 to 0 on some basic food stuff to give relief.
In the zero rating, though, let me just let the panelists come in. In the zero rating, though, do you have to have an extra layer in terms of management? Because in Antigua, zero rating happened for businesses in certain things, and it was not passed on to the consumers.
Right. So we have certain basic goods on the price control list that they could be monitored because the margin is fixed by law. If they are not on the price control list, then the only thing you could do is appeal to the private sector to pass on the savings. So we expect, if you move in, taking off 15% to 0, then we expect to see a reduction in price.
Right.
And these basic food items are as simple as that.
Right.
You expect to, we do not, if you operate in a business and your markup was 25%, and you decide, well, I have some leeway now that it has been zero rated, 15% removed, maybe I could make an extra 5% now. So instead of passing on the whole 15, you keep back part, right? And you pass on maybe 10, in some cases 5.
Okay.
So you will see a slight reduction. But these things have to be carefully monitored. So that you see the effect of it on the consumers. And that is what was recommended by CARICOM. And of course, in CARICOM, you can apply for the suspension of the CET, the Common External Tariff.
That would help, wouldn't it?
That will help, of course, because the CET varies a lot depending on the item. So you could apply for suspension. However, if the goods are made in CARICOM, there is no CET on it.
Right.
So if you come from Trinidad, which we import heavily from, then there is no CET.
Gotcha.
So the suspension of the CET is for extra regional goods.
Right.
Goods coming out of China, for example.
Right.
That has a CET.
Okay.
You could apply to reduce it. In fact, we did in the case of Grenada, did apply for the reduction in some basic thing like I remember cooking oil, cornflakes, milk, and so on. We applied for the suspension of the CET on these items. We had a longer list, but then Trinidad said they could supply. So because they could supply, they did not want us to reduce the CET and the extra regional one because they wouldn't be able to compete.
But you're not looking out for Trinidad.
No, the rules, they applying the rules.
Right.
The rules say you're in a common market, and if a member state could supply, you cannot get the suspension of the CET.
So the common market is now common for all the members, but that's where the individual members have to now boost up their production on the other side with food and so on.
In any integration process, there will be countries at different levels of development. That's as simple as it is.
Senator Daly?
Well, to couple all that Minister is saying is the issue of demand and supply and scarcity of goods as well on the world market, because COVID impacted countries with various methods of lockdown, and we're not back up to the production levels yet where we need to be. So that is putting pressure on the pricing as well. But my question to Minister is around construction. And that is a critical area because we are seeing, I know steel rods, for example, have increased significantly because of the supply side issue with steel rods and what is happening and the impact. I was reading a report recently which said that if you started to build your house now, and let's say you went to the bank for $400,000 and you got that approved and you haven't started yet and you go to now buy steel price have gone up by another $20,000 from your original costing for the $400,000. And it's just not steel. We've seen it across the board. You've seen it in cement, tiles. You've seen it in basic construction materials, electrical stuff and so on. So the question to the Minister is, could we ask for suspension for these extra regional stuff? Cement comes from within the region, fine, but steel doesn't. Trinidad used to have a steel plant, they no longer have it, so everything comes in from extra regional.
Okay.
Could we get some level of suspension of materials for construction, because it's going to impact government as well. Government is into construction sector is one of the sectors identified for promoting employment, pushing the economy and growth in the economy at this time. Is there a thinking from Cabinet that we could look at these construction materials and apply some sort of CET suspension on them so that it can help with the costing?
Well, there is a committee set up by Cabinet, a subcommittee to look at these things and look at the revenue foregone. Again, remember...
Understood that. Understand that.
So the complete analysis has to be done. As I said, what we started with was basic food items, right? For the ordinary man who shop, a large percentage of his budget goes towards food, well, consumption, right? And therefore, the emphasis was on that area. In the case of building material, because they come from extra-regional source and the freight price has doubled in some cases, you see this increase in it. So the government had to find the right balance. It's not an easy thing when you're sitting there looking at it.
It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy.
No, I know, but I'm trying to put it into context because, you see, if we were not so heavily dependent on revenue at the port, you could do that. If you look at the American customs tariff, more than 60% is zero, you know. That's not how they make the money. They make it by having tax, consumption tax, when they want to purchase the item.
Correct.
In fact, I went to one county, I can't remember the name, there was a county tax, a state tax, and a federal tax.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you see, our consumption too is impinged on employment at the moment. They're linked, and that too is, so it's just everything, it's all happening.
Yes, because COVID has changed the way we operate and do business. Businesses are not operating at full capacity, and then you see the prices increasing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you hear the suggestion, well, why don't we cut back on inputs? The answer is very simple. If you demand the product, the businessman will bring it in.
Demand
So
and
you
supply,
must stop
demand and
it. They do like if it's the government bringing it for government use.
Yeah.
What is demand? When they go into the supermarket and you look at the foreign goods there, the Grenadian consumer average purchase the foreign goods, and sometimes it's cheaper than the local one, you know.
Chicken is a good example.
Yeah.
Chicken is a good example. We were talking yesterday about chicken. And there's quite a number of local producers of chicken now, and we encourage that. Government has been encouraging that as well, as far as I'm aware. So, but the cost per pound for locally reared chicken is a little higher than the imported, because economies are scale. You can't compete with Brazil or wherever they be bringing these chicken parts from. And, you know, cost of feed for the local farmers and all the other attendant overhead costs. But people will still buy the fresh chicken because, as you know, it's not in the freezer for months. And it tastes better. So there is a lot about that. But there is, I mean, yesterday, Minister, we spoke about value added. Could Grenada get into value added more to help curb some of the costs that we see on the shelf, for example, in juices and all of these other things that we could do? And I know the history is not a good one for us in value added and into what happens to companies that, we had a company in St. David's in your area that used to do juices that went under. And there just seems to be an issue with how so is there any thinking about if we could push that area?
Well, the government policy is very straightforward with regards to juicy agro processing. We will give concession to the private sector, give them full support to get into it. Government would not get involved in the manufacturing.
Point.
And our policy is very, very clear on that. Let the private sector, you have money there to be made, let the private sector make it, you get concession and bring in all plant and equipment to run the company, but they should get involved in it. But the problem is not as simple. There are a lot of studies that have been done, you know. The point, you know, it's quite easy to sit back and say, well, you have mangoes spoiling. How much juice you could get from the mangoes that we have seasonally? And then you have to store it. The one in last just at one time had to start importing, you know.
Concentrate.
Yeah, they concentrate because they don't have, you know, but you see, so if it was as simple and straightforward, you will see a lot of people getting involved in it.
Minister, the economic outlook, and I went back about a year ago, in September last year, the Ministry of Finance, the Governor of Grenada, in his projections for what's to come, indicated a couple of things. One, optimism with the reopening of the SGU campus in 2021. I'm looking back a year in terms of what the government would have said. Inflation is expected to strengthen over the medium term with forecasted increases in global food and fuel prices. And finally, it said several public and private sector construction projects should jumpstart the economy and speed up the rate of the recovery. Is that happening? To what extent is this happening? And finally, second part of the question, we're in a pandemic. We are in an emergency situation operating, and clearly one of the strict policy of the government is to encourage and to have as much persons in the population vaccinated, because that is fringe to the economy and the recovery. To what extent is there success in this area?
The projection for the performance, the review of the performance from January to June, incidentally, as you asked, we presented today in cabinet. So all what you mentioned there, Finance has compiled it now, and we show what direction, where we're moving, how things are going. I must say that in the last quarter, though, we saw an improvement in recurrent revenue. And that is simple because the port are open now. More tourists coming back now, more visitors, more hotels opening now. So the last quarter did see an improvement, but not compared to 2019. 2019, I mean, when we the economy was doing well in 2019.
Say
We were meeting
2019
all-
BC. BC before COVID.
Well, as a Christian, I don't want to use the word BC. For us, yeah, 1 million.
It's just a
So-
play on words.
So yeah, we'll get the economic performance today, as prepared by the Ministry of Finance, updating us and where we are. I think from my reading of the papers over the weekend, the construction sector that we depend on. So I'm talking now about the government PSIP program, Public Sector Investment Program, which in order to achieve the growth that we projected must improve. That's an area that was very weak. And at the end of June, we were behind target in the PSIP. And therefore, to get the growth, we'll have to improve our spending in
And
the
implementation rate.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that is what I mean.
yeah,
We're spending, implementing, because
yeah.
we are hoping to get the project. And I said that in my budget contribution, that if we want the growth that we project, we must have at least 75% implementation rate, otherwise you can't get it.
Right.
That's correct.
And we are falling behind now.
Right.
So, and that stood out to me when I read the papers over the weekend. That is where the growth fell, and we're falling behind. But I'm prepared to come back after today when we have all the figures, and there is
Great.
with this panel to discuss it.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, make it available. Let's
That'd be
see.
useful.
Yeah, the performance.
That'd
how
be
we doing.
useful. As you're talking about food, I don't want to move off. I remember seeing this. There's this image here that was circulated from one of the major importers of food. The person have a supermarket. There's this big bottle of oil here. You see it, right? So he said that the bottle of oil in Trinidad was $180. Now it is $420. So he used to pay $180. He's now
Right.
paying $420 for it. When he imports it, adds on
right.
everything. So you know what happening here with
Yes.
this oil when I buy it?
Yeah, yes, no. That's
That's
a
the
real
reality of the situation.
Yeah, that's the reality of the situation. And they said government has started looking at the food basket, I say, to give some relief. Senator Diali introduced construction. I'm sure some other sector will say will bring in other things on the,
No,
on
I
the
mean,
paper.
Minister, construction is critical for your PSIP program.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely,
Costing
absolutely.
you more to get your program, and you're going to need more money to implement the PSIP.
Yeah.
But I want to shift the conversation now to the 4% and the achievement of and the settling of this issue with the public servants to some degree. And I think I heard Prime Minister said in his speech that it's August.
August, yeah, this month.
This month.
Yeah, this month.
It will take effect on
Yes,
salaries.
salaries, yeah.
And from January to August, we'll be putting a bond at 3% on the
January, yeah.
retroactive.
January to July.
January to July, and 1 year. Is it a
1 year, 1 year bond.
1 year with a coupon rate of 3%?
3%, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I know Prime Minister and the government's argument was that, listen, we don't have the recurrent revenue to sustain the increase at this point in time. That's the first question. So I heard you say the figures coming to you guys today to show how recurrent revenues are going. So hopefully from finance, the figures will be there to support the 4% from August going forward.
Right.
So that's the first question. But the next question is, this end of December ends the 3 years for the increase. So you guys have to start negotiations.
No, they have 1 more year for
Have
the
1 more
3 year
year?
period to end, yes.
Right.
1 more year, 2022.
Okay.
And next 4% is due.
Okay. So
Okay.
January. So you have to forecast that already.
Yes, January.
And what is going to
4%.
happen? So I say all of that from the context from the economies and the opening back up, and when you put the COVID umbrella over everything, how is
Yeah.
government going to navigate? Because you have another 4% coming in January.
Yeah.
That is going to add how much million to the wage bill? 13 million?
Well, for
Per
this,
year or?
right. So for this current 4%, you add in $1.2 million
Per month.
per month.
yeah.
Per month,
$1.2
okay.
million to the wage bill.
So 4% on top of that.
Yeah, and then you put a 4% on top of that, yes.
1.4, yeah.
So how are you going to get it? So remember, budget has to do with allocation. So you announce a budget of $1 billion and you see the allocation. So your budget constraint is $1 billion. So you have to work everything below that.
Right.
To pay this extra 1.2 million means that you have to give up certain things in other sectors.
Yeah.
You have to give up certain things, It's not a simple matter where your revenue has increased to the point where you don't have to give up anything.
Right.
Because you could meet or
Right.
anything. To pay it in a situation where your revenue is declined means that certain things have to go.
And Minister,
where
I
does
wanted
the
to make
trimming
it clear
happen?
is recurrent revenue.
Yeah, recurrent revenue.
Okay, you know, we tend to confuse capital spending.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
true.
hear that argument all the time. Well, the government's spending millions on these capital
Yeah,
projects, why we
yeah.
don't get our money? So I want us to be clear because we seem to confuse that issue.
Well, sometimes it's not deliberate, they just don't understand it. No, people just see it globally. Government spending, oh, I could spend on that, why not?
Yeah.
Because there is a lack of understanding of the difference between spending recurrent revenue and capital revenue. So on the recurrent side, you have the budget that you must meet, the government wage bill. And this increase of the 4% is for all public sector workers and all public sector retirees too, Pensioners have to get it too,
Correct.
to bring up the figure.
But has the unions accepted the bond?
Oh,
dimension
right,
yet?
okay, so let me,
What
right,
was
so
the
good thing you
status
asked that. So let me
Yeah.
come to the bond now.
Yeah.
So all of them happy with the 4%
Yeah.
increase, no issues there. For the 7 months, they said they want cash.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't want
Right, they
bonds.
say they don't want no bonds.
Yeah.
They want cash.
They want cash, yeah.
So then we had to go back and strategize and come back and say, well, listen, we don't have the cash because 8.4 million we'll have to find at once,
Right.
Yeah, 8.4 million at
Because
once.
retroactive.
Right.
Because retroactive.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we said to them, well, we do not have the cash. So if we had the cash, we wouldn't be talking about bonds. So they said, well, why don't you float a bond on the market? Okay, because you could do that. There is one
Right.
option. Raise the 8.4 million and then pay us the cash. So I had to explain as a leader of the government negotiating team that if we do that, we immediately add to the debt stock of the country. Immediately, 8.4, because you get that, right? And therefore it brings up, it increases the debt to GDP ratio.
Right.
And we have a certain figure that we're working with that is monitored by the World Bank and the IMF. When Grenada got 50 million US from IDA, the branch of the World Bank, only 2 CARICOM countries were qualified, I remember Antigua Prime Minister complaining they can't get money from IDA. They look at the performance of the economy, and how you're managing it. And that's not free money, It's 40 years to repay, 10 years grace period, 0.75% interest, but you go in as a loan.
Right.
Okay, not grant.
And the bond will
So,
belong as a loan.
right, so I come back now, I still have to explain that the bond is a loan. Because you have to pay it back in 1 year, You have to pay it back in 1 year. So I said to them, listen, we could issue the bond, and if you could get a financial institution that is prepared to accept your bond, then we could work with that financial institution.
Also, then the bond became theirs,
Theirs,
not
theirs.
the government
That's right,
floated.
theirs,
So it
theirs.
became theirs, and they were advised to now look
Yes,
for.
look for a financial institution.
And did that happen?
Yes, so in the case of, so far, we have settled that with the Grenada Union of Teachers, who have formed a financial institution. So we'll issue all the bonds because we don't have cash to this financial institution. Yes.
Okay.
And the financial institution have decided to give them cash,
Okay, great.
right, for it.
But that's a win.
Well, of course,
Yeah.
that's how, well, we want the cash.
Yeah.
We don't have it.
Yeah.
We get somebody to think, but because you see, they are not negotiating as one. So last week we meet with the prison, then we meet with police, we had to meet with PW, we meet with teachers, all public sector workers union, but they all come separate.
I see.
So yes,
Interesting.
so when we're talking about this
Interesting.
settlement, we have to be careful because PW listening on and saying, well, no, we have not reached a settlement yet. Because this week, they in front of the Minister of Labour, that is PW Tau, and the minister will make that same proposal to them. We made it on the 30th of July.
So you have settled with the Grenada Union of Teachers.
Yes, that's right. We have settled with the Grenada Union of Teachers in the matter that I said,
Right.
with a financial institution taking their bonds.
Right.
And in fact, it is easier that way and for the government because We are 1,850 teachers. We had to print 1,850 bonds, individually, showing the par value, which is or the face value of it, and then the 3%, right? If the arrangement we meet, they work out with the bank, is that you'll send the list of names instead. So you send the names.
Right.
One bond.
And one bond, that's
One
right.
bond, right.
So you do one bond.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you send the 1800.
On behalf of this
Right.
1,800
right.
people.
And you
right.
say, this 1,800 people, that's the amount each have to get.
Right.
You see, in their calculation, 4% is not much for them. They're saying, well, to wait a whole year to get $700 or $1,000, give us now.
Yeah.
As I said, it's only because we do not have the 8.4 million now. So we hope that in 1 year, if COVID does not get worse, if it gets worse and then set back the economy, it will be a difficulty for us to meet. But if you walk it over the financial institution and things go bad, you can always negotiate and say, well, give us they might say, give us an extra 2% interest, or right, or something. So that is the settlement that we reached with GUT.
Right.
And on Friday, the Minister of Labor did, Friday gone, send them the letter, naming the financial institution. Well, they knew because they approached the financial institution. When we met with the police and the prison, they say they are still in talks with the financial institution.
Okay.
They did not disclose which one. So they asked us to give them up to Friday this week. And I said, we're meeting with TAO and PW this week as well. And then there's two small ones, the GMMIW and Bank and General. They have very few members because they represent the cooks in schools and estate workers.
Right.
For them, the amount is very small.
Okay.
These are the lowest paid workers,
Right.
But they too ask it for cash. I will make that same recommendation to them. That you talk to a financial institutions. In fact, there was a good idea. Maybe I shouldn't say that the police might be listening. The police wanted to see the welfare. They have a police welfare
Association, yeah.
Could take the one bond and pay all the police. And I thought that was a brilliant idea.
Simplify
it, and they get the 3% instead of going to a financial institution. They actually was looking at that, and the prison as well. They were actually looking to see if they had enough money in the welfare to pay all the officers, and the government issue one bond to them, and then they get it. Yes, and then they get the 3%. So I would say that is where we are, and the usual pattern is once you settle with one of the large trade unions, the rest will follow.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent achievement for the government side and for the worker side as well.
Yeah.
Because that was hanging over all of us.
Yes.
I know I understand why, you see, that's why we need to understand things. There's a big noise about the financial institution not being named, read the bonds. And it wasn't complete, and you have to wait for this to happen. So now I understand. Sometimes we jump ahead and get crazy about things that we don't understand. But you see communication too, because maybe the way the information came out kind of had people.
It's the way people interpret it, not the way information came out. It was straightforward.
But listen, it's both.
We are talking to a financial institution. What could be
Minister, if I did not receive the communication you sent to me, if I did not receive it in the way you intended, the communication is incomplete.
So we could always talk about communication, but I'm saying, and I agree that the GUT see themselves as a big victory. We said yes, claim the victory.
They have always, I'm not knocking anybody else, because I think all the unions traditionally have been really great, had great people at the helm. But I've always found the GUT to be very innovative and wide in their thinking in terms of their negotiation, how they negotiate for their members. I found so historically.
No, all the unions, you see, there is different circumstances. If you call industrial action in the public service, your response would not be very good. It would not, because they are the ones that look at the figures every day, They understand the government position. They know when the government have the money and they know when the government don't have it.
Yeah.
So they come from a different point of view. But for the teachers, if they call on the members to take industrial action in the belief that the government could find the money to pay is a different thing, because they believe that the government could find the money and that they deserve the money and they're able to convince their membership to take industrial action. So they are the more, sort of, I would say, vibrant ones.
Before we leave that, though, the government has repeatedly said that any decision, and the Prime Minister said it in his address last week, that any decision of the courts re the pension matter, that the government would accede to whatever the courts decided. Having said that, have there been any contingency planning in the eventuality that, so have you started preparing, looking at your budgets, your names, modalities for this pension restoration?
Well, the question the court have to answer is whether or not the suspension, the law that was passed, suspending the payment of pension to public officers, is the law that should apply now, or is it the 1958 law? The court must decide which law applies, and in deciding that, they will look at the validity of the Pension Disqualification Act.
Right.
But if it was done validly, and by the way, the Constitution, what it says about pension is that you are entitled to the pension that when you get your employment that is in place at the time, It didn't say whether it's 58 or whatever, or what it says at the time, whatever pension is existing at the time. That is what you're entitled to. So the court had to determine which pension law was applicable. And if it is the 1958 one, it means that retroactively you have to pay everybody. And then currently you have to pay people if they qualify, having made 26 and 2/3 years in the public service in an established post. And I could tell you that's a huge, huge bill to meet. If we rule in that way, if it rules that it is the Pension Disqualification Act is valid, then that's what is existing now will continue.
Right.
But bear in mind that when the NIS came in and replaced the Pension Act, the intention of the government at the time was to move away from government having to pay the pension at the end of the day, because the finance minister in St. Vincent said to me once when we met that the pension bill is almost equivalent to the current wage bill, because the state has to pay everybody the pension under the old formula.
I see.
Yes, that they have. And so the intention was to take it away from government paying it and let the national insurance pay it. Because you always had one pension, not two. It was one. The other people are grandfathered in. So very few people in the public service now will get two pensions. You get one. But the real benefit of this national insurance is that under the 1958 Act, you had to be appointed in what they call a permanent established position. So all the other workers who were not established, they got nothing. So the government said, no, that can't be fair. Both of you all working together for government. You make same amount of years. But one was permanently established in the public service, the other not. Do you go with a gratuity and pension, and the other get nothing? So they said, let NIS, everybody contribute. The government will contribute half. The employees will put half. And then everybody gets. Right? We still have issues right now when you talk about pension. With this law that says you have to be in an established position. So in the early days, you could be a teacher with one subject, or with school living, or with two subjects. To be on the pensionable post, you have to have 4 subjects with English language. And you become a certificated 2 teacher. Yes. Now, you have several cases where you have teachers who made 30 years. And then when they retire, discover they're not entitled to the pension.
Wow.
And they say, how come? He said, well, the first 5 years, you were not pensionable posts. The position you held, you did not have full subject with English. So while you were teaching, right, this because as indicated to you, that is how it operated in the public service. And you have people in the public service who have worked in posts but not in the establishment. They're not appointed by the Public Service Commission to the post. You got a letter from the permanent secretary. And then when you count in and adding up the years, they said, well, this 7 years is not counted. So then you realize you're not qualified.
Wow.
And that, it could, for some people, that's a major, major problem.
Absolutely.
You thinking you're so comfortable. And I had to deal with a lot of cases like that, even as a minister, you know.
Yeah.
For the year so far, 4 teachers came to me with that issue.
Wow.
Similar. Because when I was in the Public Workers Union and the executive, that was my area.
Okay.
Of dealing with the calculation of pension gratuity, explain to people how you qualify, you compute it, everything like that. But I think that's something the unions should do as part of the education package.
Last week, Minister, we saw, we trust that gets resolved once the court rules. But last week we saw busmen, marching and so on, the fuel prices, it's impacting everyone, but then more so in that, they currently have a stay in terms of the lifting of their prices and so on. So they're not passing on to the consumers as the rest of the sectors are. Is government prepared to offer subsidies to the bus operators regarding fuel? And help us understand a bit, because I'm not sure that everybody's kind of au fait with how those fuel charges are calculated. Because we see the changes on the 18th of every month,
yes.
But how do we get to that point?
Right. So they look at the average prices, right, on the world market, see how the changes are made. Then when the fuel arrives here, there is a fixed margin. It's not done on an ad valorem basis. Like if you bring something and they say, okay, well, you have to pay 50% VAT, 10%, it's not like that. A fixed amount. Say $1 on every gallon, for example, right? And then, so the government has a fixed amount to collect. Then you have the dealer's margin. Then you have the wholesaler's margin. And all these are fixed that they get into arriving at the final price. But once this CIF price change, then everything else change, because you have this fixed margin that is applied to the CIF price and the goods. For government to give up any revenue there, and the fixed margin is by law. Yes, it's in law how much you could collect, and we have to go to Parliament and change it. Now, if you go to Parliament and decide instead of $1, you're going to take 75 cents. What happens if the price drop the next month? Because see, oil price fluctuates so much on the world market that if you could either two ways to address it. You could say, all right, well, if prices rise at a certain level where the retail price, you will cap it at $16, for example. You don't want gas price to pass that, so you have to give up something. If in the calculation, it ends up to be 17, that means you have to give up $1. And everybody will have to give up a little, right? It means that you have to talk to the dealers about the margin, and the retailers about the margin. So it's not a simple thing as saying, well, the government could just give up their share and bring down, because that is only how you could get the relief. The only way the price could go down is for the government to give up for the margin, or all who benefit from the margin, to give it up. That is one way of dealing with the price itself, because we have no control over it when it comes to it. In terms of the other requests that the bus drivers are making, well, give them some ease on tires, brakes, and other things that they use on a regular basis. Give them some ease, or increase the price to the consumer. In other words, they're saying, if government cannot give up anything, then let us increase the price. But in economics, they have a term saying that prices are always sticky downwards. Once the price go down, you don't see it go back up, So if gas is $17 and we give you an increase 50 cents. If you go down to $12, the price not going down still, you know.
The price to the consumer is not going.
The price to the consumer remain the same. They're not giving up the 50 cents at the time that you give them. And then at this time, to increase the price when everything else is increasing, we don't think is a wise decision. But the study
But they are still left. They are. I think if we were to walk in their shoes for a minute, and they're looking at everything, because now is all these equivalencies people are making and things are actually happening to people. You're seeing impact of it. I mean, it's like they almost, what do we do?
But it's not fixed. You see, the situation is not one that is permanent. What happens if on the 18th and next one gas price go down to $16? And then the following month you go on to 15.
Right now, people ain't thinking about next month.
No, I think no for the gas.
Now.
Yes, no. But to make any adjustment.
I get you.
Yes, to make the adjustment.
But I'm just coming up with counterpoints, because people are not thinking about it's what they're feeling now.
Yes, we understand what they're feeling now. But I'm saying to address the situation, you have to be done holistically. And a study is being done right now by the University of the West Indies with respect to the transport sector. And one of the things that they're going to address is the bus fare. How you calculate bus fares. Right?
Yeah, yesterday I was making a point on this issue, and I was saying to the president of the Bus Association that it's not a straightforward thing, as you say. But they also have to come, because yes, they may have been facing increases in tires, fuel, oil, and brakes, and so on. But busmen also need to understand the equivalency, as you're saying, of how it impacts, because when you give a price increase per passenger, on the bus fare, it's spread across 15 or 18 passengers. And how that now increase, they are able to recover the expenses that they're taking. And then it's not one trip, it's multiple trips, multiple times. Different routes may fill up twice a day, as the bus president said to me yesterday. Some do it once a day. So you need, the bus association itself need to crunch their figures and come to government and say, listen, our average increase over the last 5 years moved from $100 to $140. Our average move of passengers per route is X amount. We are suggesting an increase in bus fare from probably $2.50 to $2.25, 10 cents more or 20 cents more, and you could support it with the figures. And I'm saying that analysis must be done.
Scientific.
Yes, it has to be done, and that's what this study is going to do. The study is going to do that, so we put it on hold. They have even asked us to put the issuing of stickers on hold while the study is going on too.
Yes,
even the number of buses plying certain routes, because it really, all of that. I mean, the thing has gotten so out of control that now that we're in this situation, we could actually sit back and look and see the things that we probably really need to fix and manage. Because I mean, Grand Anse, for instance, I don't think even a half a bus need to join the Grand Anse route this morning.
And then you have the issue of, apart from oversaturation of routes, the association president yesterday was saying some men are running at a loss. No business could run, you can't run at a loss. I mean, you have your loans to pay, this to pay, and that. So obviously the route saturation needs to be rebalanced. And remember,
remember moratoriums and things done, eh?
Yeah.
So it's a real...
Not true. Moratoriums are not finished. Banks still have some leeway to give moratoriums, but it's selective, and you have to come to them and justify it, because I think ECCB have given them some leeway because the pandemic is still affecting us in serious quarters. So it is not totally concluded. You could go to your bank, plead your case, and they will look at the situation. So there is that. But as I said yesterday, the bus fare thing is not straightforward, and as Minister just indicated, it requires a lot of analysis and understanding of the cost.
And Minister, anything in the new stimulus package for them?
I'm afraid I cannot be late for cabinet.
And
now it's 8:20. So
we don't want to make you late for cabinet.
I'm prepared to come back to discuss the stimulus package.
Yes, that'll be great. As well as the fiscal performance. Your third quarter performance.
Or maybe you get somebody from Ministry of Finance to come and discuss it. Because I said we will know today. We are discussing it today.
Great.
So, right, but
we
I have
we,
to-
we,
but
we
I have
let
to
you
leave.
leave. We
Yes.
let you leave. Thank you so much.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we encourage the jab in St. David's to have a clean, safe one tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
We take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Get vax. It's your best shot. Hello.
A message from the Ministry of Health.
Tourism connects us all.
Tourism connects us all.
Welcome back to Perspectives. We'd like to thank the Honorable Oliver Joseph, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Trade, CARICOM Affairs, and the Parliamentary Representative for St. David, who was our special guest panelist this morning. Of course, he had to leave us because he had to go take care of the business of the country, and that is at the highest level. He sits at the cabinet, so his cabinet meeting this morning at 8:30. Gentlemen?
But I want to say, based on the interview that the minister gave, that they seem to have, they're understanding the situation and what is going on. But I also want to compliment all sides on this settlement. Of course, GOT have settled so far with this pending matter that seemed to have aggravated a lot of workers in the public service and so on. So I'm happy that all sides are getting to a point where there seem to be an agreement,
light, yeah.
and this matter could be settled and hopefully, calm down the situation as we go forward, because your labor climate in your country is, and how settled it is or not, is a reflection of what is happening from a business point of view as well.
Absolutely.
So we in the business community are happy to see that that matter is being settled and gradually, and hopefully workers. And we have a Christmas period coming up, and it's good for the psyche as well.
Yeah.
And for our children. We have children going back out to school in September.
Yeah.
So it is good in terms of the timing for parents to understand they have a little more to spend, take care of the children's education, and to provide some sort of relief and happiness in a COVID environment for Christmas. We just have to hope and pray with our vaccination hesitancy that something doesn't break out between now and the end of the year that will put us into a lockdown. And I can only pray and hope and beg our people to get vaccinated. And I end it.
Chris, I want to take off from where you left off in endorsing also what appears to be some resolution to this very outstanding disruptive matter, particularly in the education system. But I worry about, because a lot of what the minister said in terms of the potential is hinged on the recovery of the economy. Yeah. And when you look at the whole picture and you see our vaccine hesitancy and where the global, not regional situation is, that yes, we have optimism about the future, but it would call for stringent management of all sectors and the economy. So great development. we're in a good position, but there's a lot that we have to do going forward.
The risk
is just
the risk and the uncertainty.
I know productivity too, because as a native, we talk about, but I'm not hearing productivity. I'm not hearing that value.
I just want to add one little thing, Brenda. Is all of us in business, a lot of us have financial year ends between September and December. So a lot of us into the budget cycle now.
Yeah.
The most difficult thing of budgeting in your business is the fluidity of the environment and the uncertainty.
Yeah.
And you may put on one figure and then you keep in the back of your mind, you keep saying, boy, could I ever achieve this if something was to happen or this was to happen? And you must factor that in.
Yeah, correct.
And, it becomes so much more difficult.
Yeah.
And people who are not, persons who are not challenged with that kind of responsibility don't understand that you may say you may make $10 today in sales and something, because with COVID things happen in a flash.
Yeah.
And the $10 disappears.
Yeah, because there are other factors that impact it.
Yeah. But Brenda, the other point I want to make is that, and I appreciate that we have a lot of, let's call it negativity, but a lot of criticism of the government and the economy and what's happening. But I don't think the government is doing a very good job in terms of promoting a lot of stuff that's happening. Let me give you some examples. If you look at within the agricultural sector, there's a lot of support to householders and backyard gardening support, with again tools, fertilizer, seeds, and technical support to do this. There's a lot of young people. I'm talking about hundreds of young people that have been trained in various CVQ technical areas, and they're getting soft grant financing to do their own business. There's a lot of these things happening.
I saw some long spiels about nothing is being done and young people not engaged, and I'm like, no, that is not
I
so.
know
So you're right, exactly.
And maybe at a future program we could elaborate on some of those things.
No, these things need to.
No, because
these
and
things
there's a
need
lot
to
of,
be out there.
There's a lot of success in these areas,
These things need to be
and
out
these
there.
monies, these are loans that the government have bought, money borrowed, and for investment in young people. So sometimes when I hear the narrative and I say, boy, more need to be done.
The narrative only works because there's nothing to counter it.
Yeah.
Good.
So before we go this morning, we must let you know that there's news of the passing of national Antiguan hero and former Prime Minister Celeste Bird. He died early this morning. So our sympathies to the people of Antigua. The Bird family and Celeste in particular is quite revered in Antigua. So our condolences to all the people of Antigua, and more importantly, the family of the late great Sir Lester Bird. That's our program, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Wherever you are, have a good day. And those of you choosing to liberate and have a good time, please be safe. Please be safe. Do not break any laws, and try your best to look out for each other as you do so. Right, special commendations to the Royal Grenada Police Force. Please be safe as you go out there and discerning in the discharge of your duties over the course of the next 2 days. Thanks everyone, our team here, Nazim Benjamin for our streaming services, Blondell George, Director, Kirk Oliver, our cameraman, and our executive producer, Richie Oliver. I am Brenda Batiste. Until next time, bye-bye.